Guess who's back? Back again. Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lena and here we are. We are recapping, reviewing, and revisiting Sex and the City, the original OG, season by season, episode by episode. For anyone new catching this video, catching this channel, that is what we're doing here. And I wish everyone a wonderful, wonderful time as we go through this because I am trying to make this as informative, funny, nostalgic, and enlightening, comparing it to the recap and Just Like Crap. So here we are with season 3, episode 7, Drama Queens. And this one was written by Darren Star. This is going to be his last remaining ones, I believe, because he does leave at some point completely the show and leaves it up to Michael Patrick King and Sarah Jessica. So let's appreciate it for what it is. And what it is, well, we're going to do this in compartments like I've been doing my other videos. Apparently, Samantha takes a trip up to the moon on a blue pill ride in this episode. She might be the catalyst of why women afterwards were able to actually get their own little blue pill. You never know. She was always a trendsetter. Miranda and Steve. Well, Steve has become a new superhero. He's called Skid Mark Boy. It is disgusting, but we're going to go through it. Charlotte gets served up Trey. Her first leading man is here. And for our wonderful Carrie sees a big problem in her relationship with Aidan. Now, we're going to break these up and we're going to go through each character arc and let's hope that we learn something because what we thought we were doing back then when we originally watched this and throughout the years until the reboot is very different from what we all may feel now and how we actually see how this has changed because there's some little nuggets in here that until the reboot, I would have never put 2 and 2 together because there was no reason to. So I hope you enjoy this. And you know what my favorite part is? Stay tuned. Our first short, literally, is so short, is Samantha, one of the best characters. And I am beginning to think that as I rewatch this episode, that part of the reason why she was even put into this episode is to give her something to do because this storyline was a little crazy. And I think I would want it more from Samantha than what they put her in. But it also proves one thing and one thing only. You could put Samantha in any kind of scenario and she still delivers one hell of a scene. So Samantha is dating an ear, nose, and throat doctor. Now, I make that reference because I can say a lot of things about that in the context of Samantha and the men that she's dated. So I just thought it was funny. And as they're in her boudoir and they're about to boudoir their sessions, he asks for a glass of water and she's like, why? And he's like, oh, I want to take one of my blue pills. Now, back then, it was somewhat known what they were. It was coming out a lot. And she's like, well, first of all, that's mighty presumptuous of you. I don't know why Samantha was acting coy in this scene. I'm like, girl, you have him in your room. You have him on your bed. What did you think was going to happen? So he says, it's not that I need it. It's just that I feel better when I'm on it. And she's like, So she grabs him the water. He pops the little blue pill. And the next scene you have is that he's sending her on a rocket trip to the moon. She is very happy with the result of the little blue pill on him. So, of course, we have date number 2. And as they're in their boudoir session or starting to, he wants to take another pill. And she just says, hey, what would happen if I took one of those pills? And he says, well, they haven't really confirmed its efficacy on women yet, which led me to believe now, not back then, that I believe women now do have a variation of this pill, because it was predominantly for men back then. So I just found it funny that 30 years later, I think we do have a version of that little blue rocket ship. Fly, rocket, fly, up, up to the sky. Yeah, baby. I've never taken one. So she pops one, which I find odd because, as a medical doctor, not me, but that person, I would think that he would ask, I don't know, questions. Are you on any medication, heart disease, something as a doctor? Because if you don't know what the reaction is going to be, how do you know you're not going to give this woman a heart attack? I thought about that back then, and I still do think so now. It was very, very odd to me. So she takes the pill, and she's still flying on her rocket ship. This time she's more in control, as the poor slumpadink doctor is just completely shocked. I can't show you the clip, but he's like, what the hell did I do? She went crazy. She went into an operatic voice. Date number 3, tres, back in her bedroom. I've never seen them actually physically out. There is no dating outside of the boudoir. Okay. And, they're about to get it on. And she's like, it's time to pop those little blue pills. And he's like, why don't we not do it this time? Why don't we go au natural? And she's like, why? He's like, I don't know. I just feel like we're good on without it. And she's like, no, we're not. And she goes into a panic attack and demands for the pill. And I'm like, wow. Even back then, I was like, what is this pill? This phantom pill. And is this good? Is this how most men react? Or is this because of Samantha? It just heightened her superpower. You know what a superpower is, right? So he gives her the pill, and as Carrie narrates, she takes it, and he writes her a prescription, and she promises never to call him again. So he gives her the pill. He gives her the prescription. They go at it again. She never sees him again. And that's it. So he gets his last flight. I would think he should get his license revoked. She doesn't call him again, so the addiction is over, which for Samantha, I find that hard to believe, but okay, we'll go with that. And that was the whole storyline for Samantha. Intertwined with the 3 other ding-dongs that are in this episode, okay? Because this doesn't relate specifically to anything that has happened to any of these girls. We know Samantha. We know what she's about, and we know that she has, relationships or situationships, and the way that the rest of the crew turns out because of their situation relationships, it's still Samantha's the outlier in this whole storyline. And it's the same storyline that we go through for a majority of her arc, until she meets some of her men that moved her, which we'll get into in other seasons. But at the very minimum, I'm glad that she was in here. I still do believe that maybe this was the catalyst. Maybe I'm just, talking crap in my head, but we can thank, someone to remember that, women need, a little blue pill sometimes too. Thank you. Now we get into, we're going to get into, the Superboy, which is called, Skid Mark Boy, which is Miranda and Steve. Guess what? Stay tuned. Our next short, literally, is Miranda and Steve and his new superhero incognito name, Skid Mark boy. Now, she calls him skid mark guy, but when we get into the story, I'm going to say boy because this was utterly ridiculous. But it sets up the scene for what's going to happen not only in the next episode, but moving forward. Because we didn't know back then, and even after I rewatched it several times, I'm really paying attention to certain things and events that leads up to why and how and what the hell. Okay? They're comfortable. They're comfortable in their environment. They're comfortable in their setting. They're in the relationship. Miranda makes this proclamation in the dining room scene between the girls while they're eating that, they're in a good place. And, he's an available man. She's happy. She's tranquila. Tranquila in English means she's calm. She's tranquil. And her new favorite thing now is to do Steve's laundry. Now, I haven't lived with a lot of men, but I can tell you, I don't even like to do my own laundry now. But okay, we'll go with that. She has an in-apartment unit laundry, so we're good with that. I'm okay with that. A little weird, but sure. So the next scene after she makes this proclamation to the girls about how happy and how tranquil and how everything is just going smooth sailing between her and Steve, blah, 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 blah. It's coming. She goes home. Steve comes out of the kitchen with a tray of lasagna and they are about to eat it up. And he says, let's get some plates. And she's like, why? We can eat it right out of the tray. You get to a point in a relationship, you don't even need plates. I can't cite her for that. The next scene you have, as Carrie narrates, they are in the boudoir and it's 8 minutes of no frill sex, followed by 12 exact minutes of frontline. And then you have some, Miranda clipping her toenails in the bed while Steve is sleeping. And as Carrie says, it's the type of intimacy that, most couples, would love to have. So they're cool, right? Remember this for the trial. That's forthcoming. Okay? It's coming. Dun, 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 dun. Stormtroopers. So as this joyful, intimate, comfortable relationships of, I don't even know how much time has passed at this point between her and Steve and how long they've been together, because there is no time in this show. And I say this for when I go into the Carrie Chronicles, okay? Because I picked up on it maybe years ago, but now it's really like in the forefront. How much time have these people been together? Because there's another part of this show that really baffled me until they made the first movie. There are no seasons. I don't know if it's ever fall, winter, Christmas, holidays, nothing. They never created any seasons. So I don't know they're always outside in the sun or it's raining, but I never see seasons. So I'm going to presume they've been together at least 5 months, maybe 6. Who the hell knows? Okay. So she's in the laundry room of her unit, her apartment, and she's doing Steve's whitey tighties. And she realizes that they're not as whitey, but they might be a little tighty. And there's a skid mark. And she is disgusted. And I could tell you that even though I had to record this clip, I closed my eyes. Because I find that... Sorry. Even if I had to show it to you. So she's walking down the beautiful sunny avenue of wherever they are in New York City. And she's explaining to Carrie that, her proclamation at the diner could have been a little bit, less proclamity. I don't know if that's a word. She thinks that maybe she's confusing intimacy for being too comfortable. As Carrie asks why, she explains that she's living with skid mark guy. I say boy because only little children do that. And, as they go, yeah, okay. And, she's explaining to Carrie, she doesn't understand why men do that. How does that happen? And I'm thinking, I don't even know either, because not even my own child, in the times that I've raised him, never, ever, ever, ever. And not only that, I've only lived with 3 men in my entire life, ever, ever, ever. seen that. That's nasty. The hell, bro? And, she's stating that maybe they gotten into a rut because, even the sex is like a marathon to see who's going to have an orgasm fast enough. So they've gotten from, being too comfortable to maybe this is just routine. I could understand that. You do get complacent after a while, but that doesn't negate the fact that you can't wipe your butt, which is what exactly she says. But that doesn't really matter because why can't you wipe your butt? What's wrong with you? I've forgotten how disgusting Steve was sometimes because I was on the, Save Steve in the reboot because he has grown like all the other characters, some in other directions that we prefer not to remember. But, he was really, and this whole thing I didn't understand back then. And it wasn't until I rewatched it now that I was like, and then I see the next episode, which is coming. I was like, we went from happy, comfortable, skid mark, routine, rut, no full sex, 12 minutes of Dateline, and then it all collapses. Like in one episode. So the next scene we have with Skidmark Boy and Miranda, she's yet again in the laundry room and she's going to do the whites again, but this time she's being very cautious because at that point, let me tell you something. I would have gone up to him and like, listen, check it out. Fix this. You out. That's a deal breaker for me. I don't care just stop. Stop it. So he comes behind her, starts to kiss her because remember, they're in a routine, they're in a rut. And she's like, what are you doing? So going, I thought I'd help you with laundry. How about wiping your ass? Okay. But she didn't say anything to him, which for Miranda is shocking. And they start to kiss and he lifts her onto the washing machine and it starts to shake. And as Carrie narrates in the third act, they broke the routine and did it on the shaking washing machine and it just revitalized something in their relationship that was gone amok. And that was it. And I just stood there watching this. I'm like, okay, did we need the visual? I'm okay with you being comfortable with each other. That's normal. But did we need the visual? Until the rest of the series happens. Steve, count your days. Literally. So, next up, we have Charlotte, who will be married. Come high holy hell. And she gets served a tray. I hope you're enjoying this. And if I'm bringing value to you and you want to be part of this wonderful community, I hope you consider subscribing and staying until the end because we got more to come, honey. We got more, baby. And you know what? Do me a favor. Stay tuned. Well, Charlotte's getting her mans one way or another this year, this season, this episode-ish. How does she accomplish this? Well, let's get into it. She's at a diner with the girls as they're all talking about their problems, which we'll get into because it's mostly predominantly Carrie as we get into the Carrie Chronicles, which leads into why Charlotte feels that in order to get her husband this year, she has decided to buy a book called Marriage Incorporated. And in this said book, it says that you need to approach marriage as you would your own career, like a job. And she is very happy to share this book with the group of girls as they will look at her as she's like bat crap crazy. And I'm going to tell you back then and every rewatch and even until today, Charlotte still stresses me out every time, especially in the scene. She gave me a sense of anxiety back then when I was watching this show with my girlfriends and I had my son and I wasn't married at that time. That stretched throughout my entire lifetime on the sense of desperation from her about having to reach that pinnacle of marriage and what she envisioned it would be and what it means to her and society as a whole. And it never stopped, not even in the recap. Not even in the recap. She just has this way of, and I don't know if it's the actress, the writing, the part of both. It's just so, I want to say 1940s, 1950s, which is what they wanted to portray. But there's a sadness to this that's so overwhelming sometimes when I watch this, that even me watching this a couple of times, I was like, yeah, see, Charlotte, let's get into it. So, as she is explaining that she needs this, in the book, it states that she needs to stay away from her dysfunctional single friends. Mind you, she's part of that, but she won't say that. And that married men are an untapped resource for single men who are looking to get married. Now, I don't know what drug was in vogue at that time of that book, but somebody was smoking something. Okay? But in her mind, she needs to now befriend a married guy to introduce her to one of his single friends. Because that's how it works. Remember, that's the plan. That's the plan. Okay? So she tells the girls that they may not see her as often as usual, because now she's going to be swimming through the waters of her married friends to find the one. The one. So as we have the next scene, she has scheduled a dinner with, I think, Dennis and Amy, two people we never see again. So I call them the Invisibles, because we never see them after this again. And as she gets right to the point and states to them, this year I've decided I'm going to get married. And, like normal people, they would say, oh, that's amazing. Who's the lucky guy? And she goes, well, I don't know. I was hoping that you would find someone for me. At that point, I know from my own way, I would be like, yeah, check please. Because seriously, what the hell does that mean? Thank God they put this character in a relationship where she cocooned herself into her life, because she is just one of those awkward friends that you would just be like, yeah, I'm busy every night, every time you call to ask me out. So as she's telling them, she doesn't explain the book. She doesn't explain why she's doing this. She just wants to know this Dennis, the husband, because it's her friend who's married to Dennis. She asks him if he has any single great friends. The wife says, what about Phil? And she's like, Phil, Phil, Phil. I'm like, did you draw up the wedding china already in your head, Charlotte? And he's like, yeah, maybe. I mean, as long as, he can get away from his internet company. And I'm not understanding any of this. Okay. So she's like, oh, I have 2 tickets to the opera and I would love to take Phil. Girl, what? The opera? What the heck? What is happening with my hair here? What's happening? Oh my God. Sorry. Phil, opera, you don't even know him. You don't even have a picture of him. So Dennis says, sure, I'll call him and see if I can set it up. And the tickets to the opera are this Saturday. And he looks at her and he gives her a look. And I'm thinking he's looking at her like she's bat crap crazy. Apparently that's not the case. Because the next scene you have is Charlotte is following up with Dennis about him contacting Phil to confirm the tickets to the opera. And she's getting his secretary at the office. Okay. And she is telling him, yes, he will know who I am. And please let him know I called again. He doesn't respond. So the next thing you have, she's walking outside. Apparently it's raining for the first time I see a season in the show. And she's following up again with the secretary. And she goes, yes, he will know who I am and what is it about. It's about my future husband, Phil. So she was checking out the china in her head for the wedding. Next scene, she's in the park. It looks like Bryant Park. It's raining again. And she leaves another message for Dennis to the secretary. And this time it's a little bit nastier. And, she's going off on him saying, oh, well, apparently you don't want me to be with Phil. And I could tell you that that is his loss, not mine, blah, 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 blah. And she just hangs up and starts panic eating her cupcake. I'm like, oh my God, Phil, I don't know you, but run, Forrest, run. So here's the thing. She had 2 tickets to the opera. I don't know who she intended to take before her invisible man Phil was interjected into her fantasy, but she has taken Carrie to the opera as she's complaining that thank God that she was available because she would have had to gone to the opera by herself. But then who were you going to take before Phil? I didn't understand any of this. This is the stress that this woman gives me. So she's telling Carrie that, the guy never called back, being the husband. So then she picks up her cell phone and Carrie's like, what are you doing? Well, I'm not going to take this laying down. I'm like, okay. I don't remember you standing up. I remember you jumping and screaming and like a maniac, but okay, let's go back. Charlotte. She leaves another message for Dennis, this time in his home machine, not his office. And she's about to go off with him on the machine. He picks up while the wife is scurrying around in the bedroom or the living room, whatever the hell he is. He goes, oh my God, Charlotte, I got all my messages from my secretary. I was away at a business trip. I didn't realize that you wanted to meet Phil so badly. She goes, well, I had tickets to the opera and he sounded so nice. You didn't see how crazy she was in the restaurant? That's the excuse you're going to come up with? That's what I was thinking in my head. I'm like, what? Well, that's fine. How about I get you two together at a restaurant? I think she said Rudy's or something like that, and he'll be there at 7:30. And the wife is still scurrying out, and he's like, yeah. She's like, oh, that'd be great. I'll see him then. Well, it's the day of the infamous. I'm gonna meet the new guy, Phil. She's walking through the scariest group of men that I've ever seen. There was not a woman in that place. Not one that I can recall. She goes up to random people and asks him, are you Phil? One guy's like, nah. Goes up to another one at the bar. Are you Phil? Just because you don't have a picture of him, Charlotte, it's not cocking in your head? Are you Phil? He goes, I could be. I'm like, girl, get out. That is one of those places where you don't come back. Okay? Put that in your mental note. Dennis, the menace, turns to her and says, hey, Charlotte. And she's like, what? Hi, where's Phil? He goes, I didn't call him. She goes, what, you didn't trust me with him? Are you chaperoning? He goes, no, I didn't actually call him. I didn't call him because if I did, it would be a problem for me because you might really like him. And I'm like, because you're gay? And he says, because, Charlotte, I'm in love with you. And I just stood back with my girlfriends and we were like, so not gay? What? How old are these friends? And she's like, what? You can't be in love with me. You're dating my friend. He goes, yes, but things have not been going well between me and, I don't know, the invisible woman. And, ever since the day of the restaurant, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. I'm like, yeah, I couldn't stop thinking about her, but for very different reasons. Because you're crazy. And, you know, she slaps him. She goes, I can't believe that you have let go of all of your great single friends because of this ridiculous story. And I'm putting story because it's ridiculous. And he goes, oh my God, see, Charlotte, you're such a spark plug. I'm like, what is happening here? What? First of all, I don't even know these people. Okay. And all of a sudden you're in love with her. Have you met Charlotte? Okay. I wouldn't call her a spark plug. I call her a loose plug, but not a spark plug. Okay. She slaps him, runs out of the restaurant in her high heels and most unfashionable run I've ever seen in my entire life. She screaming taxi as this guy is running behind her. She flings herself into the middle of the street and the cab stops in the most ridiculous scene in the world. So fake so that the guy that was in love with her is nowhere to be found, because you would think if you were in love with her that he would run over and try to get her. No, he's gone. This guy comes out of the taxi that stopped in front of Charlotte, who just fell so eloquently like a princess in front of the cab in the middle of Times Square. Okay? He picks her up and he goes, "Are you okay?" And she goes, "I think so." Do you see what's going on here? And this music comes in as if, the prince and the frog, I mean, the princess and the prince. And he goes, "Hi, my name is Trey." It doesn't have an accent. And as Carrie narrates, and that's how Charlotte met her new leading man, Harry. Because at the end of the day, if it wasn't for the tray that was served, she wouldn't have met the Harry, her prince. Now we get through the Tray Chronicles for the next 15 episodes before we get to Harry. This was so stupid. Okay. Even when I saw it, I was like, is this going to be the one that she gets to stay with? And then as we start going through the rest of it, I'm like, oh my God, this might be the one. I wish he would have come back in the recap. I would have loved to have seen him. Charlotte really gives me anxiety. She gives me anxiety. Like I literally had to stop and get like something to eat because I knew I was going to record this, and I'm like, okay. So next up is our final chapter in this soup du jour of intimacy and nuggets of how certain relationships were doomed to begin with. Because as I said, Carrie sees a big problem in her relationship with Aidan. So stay tuned. And now, Carrie and her big problem with Aidan. As we open the scene, Carrie's in bed. It's night with her man's Aidan. And she jumps up and cannot breathe. As she narrates, she doesn't know what's going on because it's freaking her out. Okay? Second night, she's in bed again. It's night. Aidan is next to her. She wakes up, jumps out of the bed. Well, lifts herself out of the bed. And again, she doesn't know what's going on. Why every night at the same time as they're sleeping, she wakes up completely in a panic mode. So much so that not even this year's Dolce and Gabbana strappy sandals can get her out of it. She's checking through all of her things to see if she missed the teeth cleaning, if she missed an appointment. She doesn't have a freaking clue why every night for the last 3 weeks that she's been with her man, because it's only been 3 weeks that she's been with Aidan, that she is waking up with anxiety problems in the middle of the night. Now, pause, full stop. This happened to me, except for the fact that it was in reverse. I woke up next to the man that I was supposed to marry, and my body was screaming, "Get the hell out of there. He's a whack job." But this is not what's going on with Carrie. Let's get into it. As she is with him after they have their boudoir session, she is very comfortable, and so is he. He's very happy. And she's like, "Let me get a glass of water." And he goes, "No, no, stay comfortable. I'll get it for you." Mm-hmm. As he gets up to get the water for her, she narrates that she figured out what's wrong. She, in the first time of her adult life, is in a relationship that there's nothing wrong. Plug numero uno to the disaster that happens 30 years later. So now she's at the diner with the girls as they're all complaining about their each individual problems. And she's telling the girls that she is with Aidan and everything is working well. They are happy together, they have fun together, they mesh. And it's giving her a panic attack. And she doesn't know why. And she's used to the hunt, as she says. Everything is smooth sailing. Miranda is in her gleefully, predictable relationship with Steve, as she proclaims. And, Samantha is like, I completely understand. You don't get the stomach flip. And I'm thinking to myself, Samantha, shut up. You don't get a stomach flip and you don't hunt. You shoot to kill. Okay? So I don't understand why you're the one who completely understands. You don't have relationships. You have conquests. Big difference. Okay? But okay, we gave her a line to say to Crazy Carrie. So, Carrie's like, I'm just used to the ever so tug and pull type of relationships because, that's healthy for Carrie. So, as they're all complaining, well, I should say Carrie's complaining, Samantha's complaining, because Miranda's in her own little island, Love Island. We have Charlotte, who is determined to get married, and before she takes out her marriage incorporated, Bible, she says, okay, I can't believe this. Now we're upset because we have good men in our lives. And I'm like, yes, Charlotte, you go, girl. You tell her, you put her in her place. This would be the first time I ever agree with you. And then she took out the Marriage Incorporated book and then became, the job hunting of Olympics for marriage. And I was like, yeah, we lost Carrie. We lost Charlotte. She's gone. It's over. She had one moment of brilliance and then that's the end of that. So in, Carrie's world, she needs to have the hunt, the tug and pull, the zazazu, whatever the hell you want to freaking call it. But it's been something that's with her entire life. Next scene we have is now she is walking down the avenue with Aidan, the quiet, normal guy for all intents and purposes until we realize what was going on with him much later in the future years. And she's like, why are you not married? And he's like, hey, why are you not married? I'm like, go ahead, Aidan, you tell her. You tell her. Because she's in the same boat as you. She's just the same boat as you. Okay. And she goes, don't do that. I don't like it when you don't be cute. I don't like it when guys are cute. I'm like, okay, here we go. Strike one. And she's like, I want to know what's wrong with you. There's got to be something wrong. We can't keep going on this relationship. It's too smooth sailing. It's too effortless. And he's like, there's nothing wrong with me. And she's just nitpicking at him, trying to figure out what's going on. I go, can't you just go with the flow? And she goes, no, I don't think so. That's too 1970s. I'm like, isn't that? She really has a crock that's cracked. Okay. She really does. And he's like, listen, when you're going to get over your little, your problem, because my parents are coming into town this weekend and I want you to meet them. Now, mind you, they've only been together 3 weeks. Okay. And she's like, okay. Wow. Are you sure? She goes, yeah. And, she starts rambling about something and he's like, listen, she's like, will they be able to tell me what's wrong with you? So that's what you're going to lead into the conversation to his parents. Hey, great kid, raised him well, but what's wrong with him? That's what I thought when I first saw this. I'm like, no, she's not going to do that. Please God, please God, please God, please God. No, 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 no. Because I know that if my son's girlfriend came up to me and said that to me, I'm like, son, what's happening? What's going on? Get out. So now that we've established that he wants her to meet both his parents, which we never see again or hear about again, obviously, she is walking and talking with Miranda, who has discovered that her new man is the superpower boy skid mark guy. And she is telling Miranda that, do you remember when Big was, impossible and he was a jerk to me, blah, 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 and he wouldn't let me meet his parents or mother? And she goes, yes, I remember. This time, Aidan wants to introduce me to both his parents right there with no complications. But the problem is, I don't want to meet them. And Miranda, always being a friend, says, maybe it's too soon. And when you think about the context of what she's saying, 3 weeks, okay, sure. And she goes, but the funny thing is that Aidan is acting like I wanted Big to act when we were together. I should have known when I watched this episode originally that Big was going to be in this damn episode because I wasn't prepared for that. And I'm acting the way Big was. I told you. Carrie is Aiden's Mr. Big. So, Miranda's being supportive. She goes, maybe it's just too soon. Maybe you need drama to believe that it's real. That explains everything that happens to Miranda after. So now that we've established that Carrie needs the hunt, she needs the drama, she needs all the BS that happens. She is with Aidan at his furniture store, waiting, I guess, for him to close up with a customer so they can go to dinner. So as she's getting anxious, as she says, I'm waiting for my anxious free relationship. And she goes up to him and says, listen, I gotta go. It's getting too late to have dinner. I have a deadline. And he's like, okay, my parents are coming in this weekend. I would like for you to, they're probably going to crash. Can you come and meet them for breakfast the next morning? And she's like, well, I don't know. And he's like, well, what's the matter? He goes, I don't know about meeting the parents. He goes, oh, what's the matter? They're going to love you. No, parents always love me. They think I'm adorable. What parents have you met? When? You didn't meet Big's parents, that's for sure. You've made that very clear. So she's like, I just think that, when you're meeting the parents, it's really big. Again, with the big pun. And, he says, okay, listen, you meet him some other time. So accommodating, so stupid, so ready for a smackdown in the reboot. Okay. And she's like, oh, I guess this means this weekend I'm not going to see you. And he's like, I'm going to miss you. And she goes, that's a good thing. That is a good thing. Maybe, just maybe, we should see each other less so we can miss each other more. And he looks at her and goes, what? She goes, it's just because, you're always so available. I'm always so available. We're just always available. That look that he gave her set off the entire relationship from here to when they get back together to the recap. Okay? Because it gets even worse. As she's saying all this, he goes, Carrie, I do have a life. I was just making time for you. She goes, you see, you always say the perfect thing. And he's like, yeah, okay. She leaves, and that look that he gives to her as she walks out. Again, we didn't have the recap. We just got it a few years ago. So I've been living off this series before the recap. I would have said now, your instincts are right. Don't turn around and go back. Leave, create your little Manson family, and disappear. Because she's not the one. Ella no es. Okay? That means she's not the one. Okay? So now we have Carrie, who is on a date with Charlotte. The date that Charlotte was supposed to go to the opera with Phil, because, Dennis the Menace never called her back. She decided to take Carrie to the opera as we went through the Charlotte Chronicles about how this all is going to turn out for her. We're seated at the box seat at the opera, and Carrie takes the binoculars from Charlotte and she's scouring around the opera house. And lo and behold, she makes her way over to, Mr. Big with the idiot stick figure with no soul wife, Natasha, sitting next to him across the box. And their binoculars meet. He sees her because he was looking at her. And then he waves with that little annoying, I want to smack him. Okay. And then they both stop the binoculars. She's in shock. He looks at his wife from the side eye. I'm like, oh no, This can't, because this is what my reaction was the first time I watched this. I'm like, no, imposible. No way. This is not happening. It's only been 3 weeks with Aidan. What the hell? What are you doing? What is happening? What's going on? What's happening? She tells Charlotte that she's not feeling well and that she has to leave because the thought of her sitting across from Big and Natasha was making her sick. So she is running down the opera stairs and Mr. Big is running after her. I'm like, please don't. Please don't. If I only knew what I knew back then, what I know now, I would be like, fall, trip and fall, break a leg, literally break a leg. And not in the actor way, break your freaking leg. Okay? So as she narrates that thought of her being in the same opera house with those two, she couldn't take it. So she had to leave. So she calls Miranda at 3 o'clock in the morning to let her know that she left the opera because she saw Mr. Big and that she now realizes what's going on with her, that she wants to be with Aidan. So she goes to sleep and she realizes that as she wakes up and it comes to her in her mind that having an available man, she wants to be with Aidan. Okay, we're on the right track again, I said back then. So the next morning, she calls Aidan at the furniture store and leaves a message, and he doesn't call back. And at the evening, she's like, when she realizes that he doesn't call back, she starts to get into a panic mode because she says maybe in her mind she played this wrong, and that she started to get she couldn't breathe. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't breathe because of the thought of losing Aidan, because he wasn't calling her back. Here goes the hunt. So the next morning, she calls again and still no answer. 2 days go by, Aidan doesn't call her. She starts to freak out, narration, and she's like, she realizes that she has to make a grand gesture in order to get Aidan back because she wants to be with Aidan. And Aidan is not calling her back. So she knows that he's going to have breakfast with his parents. I forgot how she found out where it was, but she does find him. And there are parents that we never see again, respectfully so. We know why. And she knocks on the window. He comes out and she is going into her soliloquy. Well, I want to be with, I want to meet your parents. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to meet the parents. And then I decided, let me take a chance and I'm going to come and meet them because I'm like, girl, when this guy doesn't give, any guy, let's start with that. It's any guy because she behaves the same way with Big. When she doesn't realize if she has them between their balls, she goes back crap crazy. Okay. And she's like, well, I'm here. And he's like, well, you are. And she goes, and then I kept calling you and you didn't call me back. And, so, hey, why didn't you call me back? And he's like, well, because you told me in his big country bumpkin voice, you told me that, you wanted me to be less available. So I was being less available. And Ding Dong Carrie looks at him and says, well, you don't always have to do what I say. Oh my God. Oh my God. When I saw this, I was like, this explains everything. Everything. It's always been her way or no way. And the minute she gets her way, she gets bored. Because this guy has done everything she says. From this series to the recap, everything. Everything. And she's like, and he goes, come and meet parents. She goes, do you think they're going to think I'm crazy? Yes. Yes, they are. They just can't warn their son because they don't understand the level of crazyism that she's on. They go into the restaurant. She narrates, I made my stomach flip all on my own and it was wonderful. What? Again, we didn't realize the extent of this because we didn't have the recap, right? So we left it as this pocket scenario between her and Aidan, and then what happens in this other season when they get back together. Sorry. And then the brief moment in the movie, and we kind of like just left it alone. Like it's never going to happen, right? He's always going to be that one-off, the guy that you are never going to be with. What does it for me is the recap. and how all the seeds, little as they were, as we didn't realize it then, are in these episodes now. So let's get into the, shall I sing it? Epilogue. And they do. Epilogue. This was one of those nugget filled episodes that, had we not gone through what we went through in the recap, as I said, I probably would have never connected those dots, especially with the Aidan and, her wanting the hunt, and her, him always doing what she wanted to do. How all that really tied into her personality in the reboot with him specifically, and just in general, because she got bored with Mr. Big too, if you remember, which is in movie 2, I believe. Which is how Aidan jumps in, because every time she gets bored, she needs to have a hunt. She needs to have somebody she can't have. Which was very enlightening to me. And just from a psychological standpoint, they did bring up many things that it's not abnormal for people to want to be into those types of, push and pull relationships. I'm not going to take that away from anyone, but you need to get some help, because there is some problem there. If all you want to do is jump around and never feel loved and settled and normal. The fact that she makes that proclamation in the beginning of the opening scene where, she realizes that she's in an effortless, normal, anxiety not filled relationship. Maybe there's some people who just don't find comfort in that. And I would say that she is one of them, because like I said, even with Mr. Big, she got bored with him. And I would have loved for them to have really delved into the psychological meaning, especially in the recap. I think that recap could have really tied in a lot better into her past, and realize, why did she go through all of this? And that proclamation that I'm never going to give up, that she tells Miranda in the recap, that she thinks that Big was a big mistake, in order to justify her feelings with Aidan, and all the years that she kind of wasted. They could have done so much better in the recap from the mindset of a person of our age, because that's what she is. Okay. Because my age is 56 and she's 60, I think, but that's my generation. And everything that she did in this series, including all the other women, could have really been handled a lot better, in the sense that now that we're older, what do we look back and see? What do we think about all the things that coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? I would have loved to have seen something like that. I would have stayed for the recap if it was like that. They didn't do that. They tried to recapture something or add something that had no bearing on growing older and becoming wiser. They just grew older and became stupid. And when you look back at each one of these episodes that we're going to be getting into, it would have been a great time to solidify the change in your life, because what you think about in your 20s is very different from what you think about in your 30s, and so forth and so on. And anybody who's watching this that are in my age group, I think you could attest to that, and I think people who are going to be coming up watching from their 20s to their 30s to 40s, if you catch my videos, you could attest to that too. What you thought about was cool in the 20s, you can't fathom it being done now, unless you're one of those people who have Peter Pan syndrome, because there are a lot of people, not just men, but women too. But I think that the direction that they took in the recap, as we start getting further into this, and I think about the nightmare of that damn freaking show, it was such a missed opportunity, because I know that I never related to Carrie at all, ever. I couldn't be Samantha. I'm not sure if I'm Miranda. I'm sure the hell not a Charlotte, but there's bits and pieces of each one of them that is relatable. Right? My life was completely different. This was an escapism for me. My friends were not like that, but it was nice to see how open they were about conversations that maybe we would have never talked about in our current lives at that time. And that's what I looked for the show. I didn't look to see if there was anything in me in them because that was dead. I didn't act or behaved or even thought the way they did. But I appreciated the subjects that were brought up, the conversations that were brought up. To me, that was more prevalent than any of the storylines that were going on, you know? And I think that that's what I had hoped that this new reboot would have been. Conversations again about aging, feelings, mindset, looking back and saying or trying to teach others to, get out of their heads and do better for themselves. But it wasn't. It was just a bunch of fluff and stuff that was just garbage. Let's get real. They could have done a lot more. So the fun starts to come. And when I say fun, there's going to be a lot of crying. There's going to be a lot of sadness. There's going to be a lot of transitions. This is when it starts to really ramp up. So I hope you guys stick with me. I did color my hair. I went back to my dark roots. I couldn't take I don't know what color I had on. I was attempting to go blonde. I think I'm having a midlife crisis. Past midlife. So I was thinking, oh, let me try to go. Yeah, that's still gonna work. And it's washed. It's getting fluffier. So if you notice that my hair is darker, yes, I went back to my darker roots. Will I try to go blonde again? I would go to a professional before I do that because I don't want to burn off what a little bit of hair I have left. Okay, maybe in the fall. So this will be my transformation. I am looking forward to the rest of the episodes. I did catch them because I had to refresh my mind. This is going to be a hell of a ride because there's so many things that happen in the next couple of scenes that is crazy when I really think about it. I'm like, wow. And, since we don't have a real gauge of time, like everything just goes bam, 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 bam. And, I would love to get your thoughts, your reactions. I would love to thank everybody who liked, comment, subscribed. I've seen so many hypes. Bless you all for that. I need this algorithm to get picked up. I'm coming up with more videos that are not Sex in the City, as I said. As a medical note, I haven't been feeling well with my diabetes, which is why I haven't been cranking out as many videos as I want. It's getting better, but it's been hard. So forgive me if I don't jump on here as often as I can. Today was a good day. I am actually getting stronger, but the last couple of days was nothing short of health. So I'm hoping that I get stronger and I get, the right treatment that I need, but I'm here and I'm enjoying this. And I hope that you're enjoying this too. And I want you to all to stay tuned for more. And I want you to have a blessed day, a blessed week, a blessed evening, weekend, month, year. And from here to around the world that I reach. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Mwah. Mwah.